Bang. Calling the MBTA Planning and Programming Committee meeting to order. Please call the roll. We do that, right?
Chair Michelle Davis Younger,
Present.
Aaliyah Gaskins, City of Alexandria,
I think she's absent.
Deshandra Jefferson, Prince William County,
Present.
Board Member Takis Karantonis, Arlington County, Mayor Catherine Reed, City of
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. Good to see you all again. First item on the agenda is an action item number 2, the summary notes of the July 2nd, 2025 meeting, which I hope somebody read, and I need a motion for.
Second.
We have the motion, and it has been moved and seconded to approve the summary notes of the July 2nd, 2025 meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Not, that motion passes, and we will move forward to item 3, the FY 2026 to 2031 6-year program update evaluation results.
Thank you, Chair. Sri Nambudri, Senior Manager at NVTA. As you know, two of the major responsibilities for NVTA is one, to prepare the long-range plan updated towards its transaction that we update every 5 years. Other one is the section program, the funding program for NVTA, which we update every 2 years. So we are in the middle of, towards the end of that process for the section program update. And we wanted to bring you to this meeting to give you a briefing about the process, what that we follow, and the briefing about the current status, where we are, and what is coming up next. Particularly, the process includes all the evaluations, everything is done, and then after the public comment ends, NVTA staff takes a look at all that evaluation and the comments and come up with the staff recommendations. That will then first go to the 2 statutory committees, Technical Advisory Committee and the Planning Coordination Advisory Committee. Technical Advisory Committee are technical experts in transportation who live or work in Northern Virginia. The PCAC is one other elected official from your boards and councils. So we will take the recommendations to those 2 committees first. They can either endorse as is, or they can make changes, and then it will come to you. You will look at all those different recommendations from the committees and staff, and then you make one recommendation for the authority to consider at their next meeting. This meeting, we are not bringing you the staff recommendations. We want to first give you a background on what the process is, what are the measures, performance measures we look at. So you are all, next month when we bring those recommendations, you understand what level of analysis and work has gone behind it before it comes to you. So we'll go through quickly on the process. The 4 major components. The first one is eligibility. I earlier mentioned about our long-range plan transaction. Project to be eligible for funding, that project has to be included in the long-range plan. The long-range plan is fiscally and geographically unconstrained, unlike the MPOs, TPB, who need to have a fiscally constrained plan. Our plan is not fiscally or geographically constrained. We look at all the needs in the region and what projects can meet those needs. That's a plan. But when it comes to the funding, there is limited funding available. So we will look at the first eligibility criteria is that the application you all are submitting, are they correspond to the plan? Either one of the plan projects as it is, or a subset of it, or a combination of multiple projects. Then the second one is the project has to be primarily located in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, serving Northern Virginia residents. If it is crossing jurisdictions boundaries outside Northern Virginia, we have to look at those projects and see what kind of project impacts those will have for Northern Virginia, and any financial agreements need to happen with those jurisdictions outside of Northern Virginia. And then, of course, we will look at your governing body resolutions to make sure you all have seen these projects that your staff is submitting and you agree with those projects. So that's the eligibility criteria. We started that process back in May of last year, and we received 27 applications. All of them passed the eligibility criteria, which is always good. If there is something missing, then we work with your staff to make sure either it is eligible or we deem it to be ineligible. All 27 applications they received are eligible. Then we go through a series of analysis using computerized models, which we call quantitative analysis. There are three main measures that we look at, and then a series of qualitative measures. These are also number-based, but it's not coming from a computer model. It's coming from the applications. We look at the data you submit. We look at various analysis we can do with those. And finally, but not one of the key important aspect is the public comments. I think two of you were at the last authority meeting here. We had a public hearing. And then from April 2nd until last day, Sunday midnight, we received comments through our online comment form. We take all that comments, look at that. Are they supporting certain projects, opposing certain projects? What are the kind of comments we are getting? We take all these into consideration before staff start developing any of the recommendations. So we just finished the public comment, the last part of that process. Staff will now take a look at the comments and then start developing the recommendations. We'll briefly go through some of these criteria. Congestion reduction related to cost, or CRRC. You may keep hearing this a lot because by Virginia code, we had to give preference to this, priority to this particular measure when we look at funding. What we do is we look at each of the applications, jurisdictions, and agencies submit in the 2045 fiscal year, how this transportation system in Northern Virginia will perform, how much congestion will be on our streets and buses, with and without those projects, without each project. So you get a comparison. There is X number of hours of congestion in the streets. When you do this project, the congestion is reduced by a certain amount. We compare that for all the projects. We divide that. We do a little bit more detailed work on that too. From the date the project is completed until 2045, cumulative number of congestion reduction. That's what we look at, and divide that by the total project cost. So that gives us the congestion reduction over the 15-year or so of the projects, and how much is it based on the cost, so benefit cost ratio here. And then we rank all the projects based on that CRRC ratio. By law, we had to give preference to that. It doesn't mean that that's the only measure we look at. The next slide talks about transaction rating. While we were updating the transaction, we worked with the committees and you all at the authority to define the goals and objectives. We then came up with 10 performance measures, worked with you all to define the weights for each of those measures. So what we do is we look at each of the projects separately, applications separately. Under these measures, how does that project perform? The measures, the first measure, CRRC, looked at congestion reduction. Transaction rating looks much wider set of measures. It looks at congestion reduction, it looks at accessibility to jobs, it looks at safety, it looks at how the bike and pedestrian environment is improved by this project, emission reduction, a wide variety of factors. And we come up with, based on that weights, one specific rating for that project. Some of these measures are also required by the law, not all of them, but some of them. And the third measure we look at through computerized model is long-term benefits. Again, the law, the top part of this slide quotes actually what the law says. Over the long term, the allocation of benefits to member jurisdictions must be approximately equal to the share of the revenues attributed to each of the 9 member jurisdictions. Underlined 3 terms there: over the long term, benefit, and approximately equal. Virginia code doesn't define that, but the authority in 2014 appointed a working group which looked at this particular part of the law and came up with some principles how this can be translated into an actual evaluation. For the past 3 rounds, staff has made it operational. We are looking at this in different ways to see how this can be evaluated. One is we again look at congestion reduction as the benefit here, and then see by doing all of our projects. Currently, we are at 135 projects. You have, as authority, you have approved funding for 135 projects. If all of those projects are implemented, what kind of congestion reduction can we see happening in the region? Then look at it in 2 different ways. One is how much congestion reduction is happening within one jurisdiction, and take the percentage share of that for all the jurisdictions. The second way we look at is who is actually getting the benefit of those congestion reductions. So for example, a project in Fairfax County, so the congestion reduction physically is happening in Fairfax County, but the traveler from Loudoun County must be using that facility to go to Arlington County or DC. Now, then the benefit is actually going to the user from Loudoun County. So we look at it in both ways, jurisdiction ways, and also where the traveler is living and that person's that much benefit is assigned to that origin of the jurisdiction.
So in another way to say that it's based, so when the authority adopted principles, you didn't adopt a policy, but in December of 2014, you adopted principles. There were 3 things with the principles. Number 1, project location. If the project is in your jurisdiction, then 50% of the benefit, like if your project costs $5 million, then 2.5 million is going to be attributed to your jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Then the other remaining half is project trip origin and destination. If the trip is starting in Prince William, but is going to the city of Fairfax, then Prince William will not eat all of the benefits because the trip is really going to the city of Fairfax. And then the last thing that the authority did with the principles, they said it will be retrospective. But that's something we do as staff to help us. We do long-term benefit assessment with every funding program. So every 2 years, we do the long-term benefit assessment, because what we didn't want to happen is to say, oh, someone is severely deficient in long-term benefits. It's supposed to be retrospective, and it's supposed to be on completed projects. Not that anyone would do this, because we do have some policies in place, but we don't want to incentivize people drawing out the completion time of their project. So long-term benefits hasn't really hit. So for our purposes, all of the projects we fund, we look at where we are with long-term benefits. What I try to tell all localities, because long-term benefits only apply to the 9 jurisdictions, the 5 cities and 4 counties, it is highly unlikely with every funding program every 2 years you're going to be on par. That's highly unlikely. Some years you may be up, some programs you may be down, some programs you may be on par. But that's why it says, and I think the code section says overtime or something generic. But we don't want anyone to be sufficiently under or well over.
Actually, what Monica said is in this slide, the allocated regional revenue, 50% weight is for that, other 50% is for the transportation benefit or the congestion reduction benefit I mentioned. So you can do it in 2 different ways. Both those colored, the yellow one shows where that benefit is happening. The blue one is who the benefit is being accrued to, or the user. And then we all take those percentages and map it along with how much money each of the 9-member localities brought to the table, which we know all the way to the last cent. So our finance team has all that data. So those are we compare those things to see if all these 3 are pretty close to each other.
And one more thing, sorry, Shereen, that for towns, and that only applies to you, Chair Jefferson, since you're the only locality in here with towns. long-term benefits does not apply to towns. So if you have a town that is applying for regional revenues, and for this funding cycle, we have the town of Hamilton, which is in Loudoun County, we request that the towns go through the counties. There is an exception to that. The law does identify 5 towns, or no, it doesn't say 5. It says the towns in Northern Virginia with a population of 3,500 or more, they get a percentage of the 30%. So right now, there are 5 towns in Northern Virginia that meets that threshold. Then they have a memorandum of agreement with the counties to get their 30%. We will accept independent applications from those 5 towns. We will request that the county supports the project via governing body resolution, because at the end of the day, it's the county's long-term benefits that will be assessed when we fund a project in a town.
So let me just understand, I'm sorry, Chairman. So to understand, like, you're saying 3,500 people or more, so town of Dumfries, for example,
Yes.
they can go and make the request, that you're just asking that we support the request.
Yes, through your governing body action, because for 2 reasons. Number one, towns do not vote.
Yeah.
Because we have a one man, one vote. So because towns can vote on county chairmen or women, then they have a vote. Now, and so that's the first thing. Second thing is, because they don't have a vote, and it may be Mayor Wood or whomever sitting at the table, Chair Jefferson, you are the voting member.
Yes.
And we do not want that kind of conflict. We don't want
Mhm.
anyone to be surprised.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, so if the town doesn't submit a supporting resolution, that will be an ineligible.
Okay.
Or the county.
And you're saying it also comes out of our 30%? Or
Not, that's different. So the towns with a population of 3,500 or more, they get a percentage of 30,
Okay.
they get some of the 30%. It's based on school age population. They have a memorandum of agreement with the counties, and you county are responsible for distributing that 30%. So when the certifications are met, annual certifications, we distribute the 30% to all members jurisdictions, all 9. And I don't know if this is what have you. It's my hope that all localities meet the certification threshold, because then that's a different conversation. Once we send you your 30%, if you are a county, then you distribute to the town based on school age population.
Okay.
Those are the 3 quantitative measures we use transportation models to analyze and come up with. Then we have a set of qualitative measures. These look at, as I mentioned earlier, these look at other factors that are not coming out of models, but coming out of your applications. And for example, how much external funding are you bringing to the table? You are already getting some funding for this project. You are requesting the gap for NVTA to fill there. Or when we fund this project, will this project be fully funded, or will there be any other phases that are yet to be completed, which means we can fund the project, but the project still need to find money for it to completion. So otherwise we don't know, whether there is no guarantee that this project can then complete on time. So we look at all those different factors. I mentioned 135 projects that you are already approved for the region. So we have some data. Many of those projects are completed. Many of them are underway. So we have a lot of data about how those projects have been moved. When we receive the applications and authority approved the funding, there is an expectation for each project to start at a certain time and complete at a certain time. And then we track and see, did jurisdictions follow that, or there were delays? And we understand that delays can happen for various reasons. So we just make sure that our team communicates with your staff to understand what are the reasons, how the delays are happening, and make sure. So we track those kind of delays also. So we know the past performance of each of the jurisdictions. Some of the projects, you are coming back for more money. You already received some funding, you are coming back for more. So those projects we know at the project level what is going on. So we look at those past performance into consideration too. Then you have a couple of policies, but the primary one we look here is policy 29 that sets certain schedule timeline for you to move the project essentially. So once the authority appropriates funding for a project, you have the jurisdictions agencies have 3 authority meetings to execute an agreement. You have 18 months to show substantive progress of that project. So we look at those factors to see did each of these applicant met those or are they behind it, ahead of it? So we categorize based on those performances too. So these are different ways in which we look at additional qualitative aspects. You can stop at this point and see if you have any questions on any of those measures, how we evaluate them or anything.
Any questions?
No. Looking up here. No, thank you.
Okay. Then I can go into the current set of applications and show you some of the results. So you may not be able to read it on the screen, but you have the printouts in front of you. We received 27 applications. I mentioned earlier, all of them were eligible. So we went ahead with analyzing all of them. The request we received was for 1.26 billion for 27 applications from 8 jurisdictions, 4 counties, 3 cities, and 1 town. So, and always Monica keeps saying about whenever this discussion comes, we request is 1.26 billion and
We don't have
that. In fact, Finance Committee at their meeting last week looked at the PAYGO amount available and they approved it for your consideration at the next meeting. That is about 780 million. It's not the exact number. I don't have the paper with me, but 780 plus or minus a little bit, which shows that there is about 500 million over subscription in this round. So we don't have that much money available. Next one. In this slide, you have 2 tables. The top one shows number of applications and requested amount by jurisdiction. Usually we see about 5 to 6 applications per the big jurisdictions. This time we have 1 jurisdiction submitting 13 applications. Others are still in the 1 to 5 range. The second table shows that the same description by the same set of applications by mode. One thing I want to point out there is that you see 12 applications under bike ped projects. In the last 3 or 4 rounds, we are seeing compared to the rounds before that, the first 3 rounds plus the first 6-year program, over time, we are seeing a lot more multimodal projects, more bike ped, more transit projects coming to the table for with applications.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
In between? So obviously there is a cadence in why we see more bike ped and multimodal projects, because sometimes you prioritize expensive stuff and then you want to do less expensive or not less important stuff. Later you need to have the former in order to be credibly applying for the loan. So do we, in the multiple criteria, do we account for that there is a cadence between projects, or is a bike ped project is so much that it can score and we move on?
No, we don't have a separate scoring process based on the mode. It's again up to you all to decide which projects you want to apply to us.
Sure.
So NVTA staff cannot decide to pick and choose where to go with what type of projects.
The only thing I might say that, for example, I would have expected that if a bike ped, a multimodal project follows, complements, works with a previous high CRC project, it actually should score higher because it contributes more to the goal because of the pre-existing investment. So does this, it's kind of I'm not after the individual jurisdictional interest here. I'm more after the success of the program, right? Impact of the program.
Absolutely
Okay.
sure.
Fine. I mean,
It's not a part of the criteria, but we, in the application, we ask for jurisdictions to tell us if this project is synergistic with any of the any of the projects we already funded.
yeah.
So
was-
that question is already there for us to understand, to see that compared to a project that has a synergy with a project that doesn't have a synergy, there is a
Awesome.
difference.
Oh,
So our
good.
funding in something with the synergy makes more sense because it's also supporting a previous funded project.
And how do we handle if the available amount 780 million, but Fairfax applications are, I mean, it's one and a good one, right?
It is a good
Yeah,
one.
it's a-
So ultimately, the recommendation to the authority will come from this committee. So what we will do, like Shri is going over the criteria and the analysis and where we are as of now and the public comment period, which because it closed Sunday at midnight, and I think we had 279 or something like that,
Yeah.
we're still going through it. But now in the month of June, we will be going to the committees. You have two statutory committees that we will be meeting with, and then this standing committee. We have the Technical Advisory Committee, which is comprised of citizen experts, and then we have the Planning Coordination Advisory Committee, which are elected officials who do not serve on the authority. We're going to ask them to make a recommendation on top of staff's recommendation. Sometimes we are spot on, we're in alignment, and sometimes they have some tweaks. We will bring that information to this committee. This committee makes the final recommendation to the authority. Now, it will be interesting because to get to what you said, board member, we are knee deep in some projects. Some of these projects are continuation projects that we have monies on from previous funding programs. And as Shri noted, if the project is advancing, then great. There are conversations to be had. I personally, and I don't think this is any surprise, we at the authority, at least from a staff perspective, I do not like when we're the only funding source on a project because we want to incentivize the applicants to get other funding. And I think there is one project on the list that other funding is possibly in the works. And we have to remind everyone, even though we're doing this funding program now, we're looking at out years, fiscal years 30 and 31. So we will see what happens. We're talking about some strategies internally, because ideally, if we could, all the projects that we can possibly fund, we would. If we could take care of all of them, because all projects have a great story, a good, a story behind them, why they're needed. But we just don't have the funding.
You're not our sugar mama.
I like that. No, we don't have it.
Right, okay, and there is also a cadence of financing because the authority has also, it's a kind of a medium-term financial outlook.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, the authority has had more pressure to get money out of, actually invested without being the authority always in control of how the
Yeah.
money is invested,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, and I tell people, it's not an issue if an applicant or project has multiple funding sources on it and they're not spending your money first. Because if it has, for example, federal funds, federal dollars have sunset provisions on it. If you don't use these certain federal funding categories, you will lose it.
use it or lose it, right?
You will lose it. We try not to be that tight. However, the project has to be moving, and we can see that. It's when we see no movement and then there's no communication about what's going on with the project. We get it, things happen, and this is why we do the whole project status update. We're trying to meet with the project sponsors and have these quarterly meetings so we can know what's going on. Because I tell everyone, if we don't know, we can't tell the story, and it looks like your project is just stalled.
Gotcha.
And we don't want.
Nope.
So moving on, there is a map. As I said, the 27 projects across the region. A little bit concentration inside the Beltway, but all projects across the region. The next slide shows the projects by that CRRC rating. Rating that by Virginia code we had to give priority. So in this, as I mentioned earlier, we look at the cumulative congestion reduction the project is expected to have divided by the total project cost. The first two, three I will mention: next generation bus rider information from Arlington County, performance parking initiative from Arlington County. Both are technology projects. And over all the programs that we have done so far, we usually see technology projects do well in this particular rating. What do you call your bang for the buck?
Yeah.
This small project is not highly costly. It's maybe a couple of millions at the most, but the benefit you are going to get out of that is relatively high.
Right.
So those projects usually rank at the top.
I agree with that. I mean, I kind of intuitive, gut feeling wise, I agree with that. And I'm a big proponent of good transit information and, getting to see that, not having to search for it. Or what I don't understand is, okay, I know there's a difference, but the difference here is an order of magnitude of 100 plus. So between the first and the last ranked.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you that, again, gut feeling wise, that the access improvements to a metro station are, I can understand that they will rank lower, but that much lower. That's how
Are you talking about the last project in this list?
It's in the second decimal, and that surprises me, honestly.
I guess you are not talking about the
Yeah, no,
the
exactly.
courthouse metro access. Yeah.
And I know that, I understand that the metro station that has already some good access is not going to be it is a critical improvement, but I understand that implementing a bus transportation system, system-wide the information system will score higher.
Yeah.
Got it. But that much higher?
Yeah.
That's what surprises me.
Again, it's as you mentioned, Kotos already has other ways to get into the access to station.
Right.
This
But
is
at the same
this is
time,
specifically adding one more, replacing one with a better one and adding one more elevator.
Correct. And I can tell you right now that the elevator, I mean, as a user, by the way, that the second elevator is really a huge improvement in accessibility, visibility, and multimodal, integration of the station, plus the current land use around that with a number of housing units that are coming online is huge. So in just 5 years, we added about what? Immediately around the station, like 2,000? And more will come, because right now we say housing and we ask how high. So that's basically it. That's kind of, I mean, I'm not surprised that it scores lower. I'm surprised that it scores that many orders of magnitude lower.
Well, I would say, the scores are based on this set of projects. If you had different projects being analyzed and this one was a part of it, who knows, it may score higher, or it could still score low. The other thing is the cost. It may be a great project, it may have congestion reduction benefits, but when the cost goes up, and especially for access improvements, you see the congestion reduction component starts going down. What we have seen, especially because this is our 8th funding program, the larger scale projects, even though they are larger costs, because they're so large in scale and they have other modal components, they usually do better with CRRC. But we do ask the applicants to rank your projects, because we are to give priority to the projects that have the greatest level of congestion reduction relative to cost. If we do not select in order of the CRRC, and I don't think there's ever been a funding program where you select it in this order, for us, we just need to document the why. And so for when you're looking at the quantitative, the numbers tell a story, but then the qualitative tells.
Right, I fully
Yeah.
understand. I'm just,
Yeah,
trying to-
and it could be, I think it's cost and the other projects that were being evaluated in this funding cycle.
By the way, I think that's one of the major deficits of the initial engineering of the metro system was the lack of sufficient second, third, fourth. I mean, most international legacy experience is that metro stations have to have many exits. I mean, you land in any legacy system, Paris, London, wherever you want, you will find every metro station having more from the get-go. Because this is critical, and we're trying to retrofit them at absolutely insane cost. So that it is, I think, system-wide. It's a hard quality and quantitative criteria that we try to retrofit the entire system. Actually, we are helping the entire system. with that.
Yeah, Monica already mentioned, so I will not go into detail. If you look at the cost, you can see the total project code for
Yeah,
that
that's-
is 67 million. Are we getting that kind of more shift that will help it reduce the congestion that much? That is the question here. And also, as Monica said, the pool of applications we receive also impact. We're not saying that these projects, the projects that are ranked below or second half are bad projects. They are
Oh, I
good
understand.
projects, it's just compared to the pool.
Okay.
So that's a CRRC. The next one is transaction rating. Here, if you look at, as Monica earlier alluded to, the large projects, they will have higher impacts here. Here, we are not looking at the cost. We are looking at the 10 performance measures and all that impact of among all those different measures. Each of the colored columns here shows those 10 measures, how each project performed on them. Some projects, a project A might perform well in the measure 1, not so much on measure 2. It could be all over the place. But then we use that weights that you all approved in 2022. We take that combined rating, that's a gray column towards the right end there. And then based on that, we rank them. Here you can see, as I mentioned, Richmond Highway BRT, Route 50 North Collector Road, Tube Street Transitway, all big projects that has a large footprint, a lot of impact across that, not just that locality, that area, but across the region. So those kind of projects rate high in this particular measure. Now coming to the next one, long-term benefit. Before you start looking into this chart is from the previous round. I will come to this round. This is from the previous round. I will explain to you a little bit here. If you look at the first column, Arlington, the red square is the share of revenues that Arlington brought to the table until that cycle. And the two other colored dots there, the yellow and blue, those are the two ways we look at that congestion. Remember that I explained about within jurisdiction, how much congestion reduction is happening compared or looking at the user of that facility, congestion reduction, who is getting the benefit. So those two ways, those are the two dots that you see there. What we are trying to see is that in the long term, the share of benefits and share of revenue has to be close to each other. That's what our aim is. So that's what we are trying to see. Are they close to each other or not? In the previous round, as you can see, Arlington's share of revenue that Arlington brought to the table is higher than the benefits Arlington received from all the 135 projects that were implemented, that were approved. You can see a gap there. If you jump to Fairfax, the next column, that one of the dots is overlapping with the revenue share. So you can say that it's closer. Now, if you compare Prince William, it's the other way around compared to Arlington, where you see the the jurisdiction receiving more benefits than the share of revenues that Prince William brought to the table. Rest of them are all, you can see, more or less equal, close to each other. So we call this as Arlington is probably underperforming, Prince William is probably overperforming. But Monica already mentioned what I was going to say. In one cycle or two cycles, we won't be able to balance it all. Even if we balance it at some point, based on the next set of funding, who get more funding and how their impacts are, this can still go out of balance. So we are not saying that we will balance it out in every cycle or over time. We will be trying to keep it as close as possible. So the next one, actually, if you look at the next slide, similar chart for this cycle. When I say this cycle, we looked project everything that got funded through the last cycle. So here, similar trend you can see here too. Most of the other jurisdictions, their shares got tighter, so it's good. Arlington and Prince William are still in that same range of underperforming or performing. Got a little bit tighter, but not still there is a gap. That's how we interpret it.
To clarify, overperforming compared to the
The revenues
benefits, to that.
attributed to your locality.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it underperforming. I would call it we have compared to the revenues attributed to that locality. And Board Member Curaton, I don't know if you were in when we were talking about the principles that the authority adopted. We do long-term benefits with every funding programs, but according to the principles, it's supposed to be every 10 years on completed projects. And for us, we want you to see how you're doing with each funding program, and we want to see so that we won't have a big aha and making sure we try to stay on par.
We want convergence over time, so
Yes.
that's, you manage that by trying to optimize the deviation over time, so you don't want to be too far away, so that you have the chance in the next, in a few cycles to catch up. Of course, this has also something to do with the kind of project that you bring in.
Absolutely.
It can be like Fairfax right now, a big one. And then it can throw you off a lot, deviation. That means that you have to understand that if you get that granted, you have to be a little bit less ambitious in the next cycles and vice versa. So, for me, it's a very interesting experiment to see how jurisdictions calibrate their the drawing.
And I will say Hampton Roads, they don't have long-term benefits in their section of the code. CVTA, Central Virginia Transportation Authority, they don't have long-term benefits in their code language. We do, and we try to make sure we're matching. The larger localities are going to submit projects that usually are a larger dollar amount.
Right.
So you got Fairfax, the largest in the Commonwealth, and Prince William, second largest. So what we're seeing with those two isn't anything surprising because they are large localities. And the smaller cities, if you will, are on par. I told your staff, I met with Way a year or so ago, I said, you have to submit more projects that really meet the criteria, the smaller projects, and nothing against them, and I don't want to speak to the county's priorities, but help us help you at least close the gap.
Correct. I have to say that for the benefit of everybody, I'm a big believer that the fact that we consider long-term benefits is actually the quintessential mission of the authority, because this is what builds the regional systems. Otherwise, if you had to quickly converge every single time, you would never have the ability to do any big jump above your class of funding.
Yes.
or above your class of benefit.
Yes.
So also as an Arlington, I'm a very big believer on having a strategic tolerance for the deviation. My taxpayers, my constituents would say, wait a minute, yeah, but, right? So we want, and this is why we tactically, we adjust and learn to apportion size, scoring eligibility, etc. And I think that this is a good thing for everybody to adopt. We can learn from us a little bit because we have had some experience.
That's exactly what Monica is mentioning earlier too. Some of the jurisdictions, their staff have been looking at our criteria, all these criteria that we just explained. And over time, they've learned that these sort of projects will perform well at NVTA. And their teams look at those kind of things to submit which applications should go to NVTA versus smart scale versus federal. So, and it's, as Monica said, it's not just number of applications, but the projects that will perform well at our criteria. So that makes a difference.
It's also an instruction to county managers and city managers to, calibrate their CIPs also. We got that. Yeah.
Next slide. So qualitative measures, we'll went through all that analysis, as I mentioned earlier, different criteria. As you can see, some criteria, all projects are doing great, some criteria not so. In some criteria, you will see some projects or some jurisdictions are doing good, some of them are not. So as you saw, we have to give priority to CRRC, but then we also look at other measures, the other two quantitative measures, and then we use this to inform us about each of the qualitative measures. We use the qualitative measures to inform us about the relative strength of the projects. They will come into picture if there are some projects, 2 or 3 projects maybe. For all other measures, they are all more or less same level, but we can fund only one project. Then where will we go? It's like a tiebreaker. We will use these measures to make sure a project that is performing better in these criteria can get funded. So we had all this analysis done. We had a 2-page description about each of the projects, the project description and map where the project was located, details about the project schedule and cost, all that information, all the analysis that I showed you, this project description, everything was published on our website. And from April 2nd until last midnight, 45 days, we had the public engagement period, public comment period. Everything was published. Next slide. Everything was published on the website. And as Monica mentioned, this is again hot out of the press, and we still are going through evaluating the comments to make sure we have the right numbers. But the draft number says 279 responses. Many people have commented on multiple projects. So the project wise, there are 706 comments. So 279 people commented on 706 individual projects.
And over time, we've learned that we have to evolve the way we do public comments, because we found that if we did a form, you would get the form letter from hundreds of people, but it's the standard, it's verbatim, the form comments. And what we don't want to say, well, this project received over 500 comments, but it's really a form that's been populated, because that skews true public comment. And what we're after is true public comment, because that helps us, make a recommendation as well.
Next slide. So as I mentioned, we just finished the public comment period. We are going through that data to see how many projects from where we got supporting comments and opposing comments. We will go through all that. And then at your next authority meeting, that's a June authority meeting, we will bring that information to you. So currently you saw the evaluation results and how the projects perform. At the next authority meeting, you will see what was the public comments. So that gives a full picture. Based on this, staff will develop the recommendations, and we'll go to the two statutory committees on June 17th. They usually meet on the third Wednesday and the other meets on the fourth Wednesday, but both will meet on the third Wednesday. We will provide them the public comment results as well as the staff recommendations. They will weigh in on that and then they bring their own recommendations. Your next meeting is on June 18th, the day after those two committees meet. We will send you the staff recommendation 1 week ahead of time, but we will bring their recommendation, the two statutory committee recommendation. So you can consider all those, the staff recommendation as well as the two committee recommendations, and you debate, you come up with the final recommendations to the authority to go to the authority for consideration at the July meeting. So that is the rest of the schedule, 1 more month. And we wanted to give you this briefing about the process and where we are with the evaluations, what kind of projects do we see well ranked or lower ranked, all those things, and then have any questions answered so that next month when you see this, you can quickly get into that recommendation. Do you have any additional questions?
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I remember these ranking exercises where the Galton system applies where everybody gets ranked the same because, somehow, I mean, like, how would I have something against a Fitzwilliam? But that's okay, that's fine. I mean, there is I've seen how where was that? Canada somewhere, in Toronto, the big, so they had the same problem with the deviation. You pay and you cannot. So you had the option to accumulate points. So if you wouldn't score, because some of this was a bigger place, so that meant a bigger mix of very deviating jurisdictions, very small ones, and bigger cities and with a lot of staff, because capacity is an important part. So if they didn't get something funded yet they were contributing to our equivalent, they would get some points that would accrue to their score, and basically they could use them at some point with something. But I mean, I think we don't need that, because if you see the deviations, this is very specific to jurisdictions that had, a very good strategic interest, mine included, to invest in the bigger system so that it really works. We benefit a lot from regional workers coming to work in Arlington and going back home. Bangalore is a fantastic station, I tell you that. So, and with a fantastic bus station as well. So that accounts for that. But I mean, this is not a unique problem. It has been for a while, and there are different ways to go around that.
So just one addition to that, Ms. Backman and the team that started looking at this in 2014 had been actually implemented then itself. Long-term benefit, we haven't started looking at that until last 2 cycles, but they have already implemented something what we call as geographic balance to make sure that the funding is not going to one part of the region. Make sure there is some balance.
That's good.
We have been doing that. That probably definitely helped to keep at this level of balancing. Only 2 jurisdictions are slightly off balance, but everyone else is balanced. It's partly because we have been using that factor.
Also, I think I said that before, but I always recommend it, and that's for our colleagues as well, from time to time to think to host an afternoon and evening to actually tour a few things. So it is always very insightful for decision makers in different places in the region to actually look and see how transportation investment or the lack of feels somewhere where they're not familiar with. So for me, it's important to try to take a bus in Manassas for once, or to see what the challenges there are. And vice versa, it is a great thing from somebody, I don't know, from Burke or from the Occoquan to come up and see, you know, how it feels when you have a complete transportation system that works for you and for your people. You get out of these with a different perspective about the value of things, and I think this is always helpful, also for staff.
Yes. Okay, thank you again for that update. And the next item on the agenda is the MBTA update from Ms. Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I will be brief. I made this announcement at the authority meeting, but I wanted to note that MBTA is holding the Best Workplace for Commuters Opening Day Ceremony at our office on June 17th from 11 to noon. The invitation went out last week. If you didn't see it, don't worry about it. We will send others. And it's a big deal because it will be live streamed across the nation and in Canada. And apparently Virginia has the most best workplaces for commuters locations in the United States. So it's a big deal. We will be hosting. We hope to see as many of you there as we can. And then the last thing I will note, the June authority meeting, Chair Randall announced last week, will be virtual.
Oh, okay. Anything else? Anybody here?
I can just add one more thing. So at the next meeting of this committee, you will make the recommendations for funding. That is probably the biggest action you had to do in this year, but subsequently, July and August probably you will not meet. August usually you don't meet. But fall and early winter, we will be bringing you updates from transaction. We have started updating the work to update long range plan. Starla is a project manager, so we will be bringing to you various information item as well as action item throughout fall. Especially, we will be looking at those 10 performance measures you saw that is associated with the goals and objectives that authority approved 5 years back. So we are doing started the public engagement now. Through the summer, we will do that. And then based on what public says about their needs and their priorities, we will take a relook at those 10 measures, the objectives and goals. And then we will work with your staff at the RJAC, our committee here, staff level committee here, and then bring to you and the committee, other committees, what we hear from everyone, and make sure you take an action in fall.
All right, if nothing else, then we are adjourned. Less than an hour. Look at you.